Hello, friends. Welcome to another episode of Minor League Fan Club, where we travel to baseball towns exploring minor league level ballparks and their cities. I'm your host, John Southey, Chief Minor League Fanatic, and today is another special episode in which I have enlisted a couple of my friends to help travel to these minor league cities and their ballparks. So please welcome Eric Proffitt of Earn Fun Average and Ed Rivera of the Dad Hat Chronicles. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me today. Hello, and how are you?
I'm doing well. Appreciate you having me on, John.
It's a pleasure.
What's happening? By the way, I appreciate that. And then you said Rivera so smooth. I appreciate you for saying that.
You're
I'm like,
welcome.
that caught me off guard. I'm not
I
gonna
saw.
lie. I was like, oh, okay. So this is how we're gonna start this.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
cool.
I'm not gonna copa you the wrong way, Copa de la Diversión.
Love it. Absolutely love it.
But yeah, of course. So I've known both of you for several years via Twitter. Actually met Eric after Ed, and the same year I met Eric on Twitter, I met him in person. Ed, I've known you probably somewhere around the pandemic era, and we've yet to run into each other at any city, any ballpark, so I'm not sure what's up with that.
I know, dude. It's crazy. I haven't been to Texas. I was just talking offline. It's like, I'm going to be in Texas, here soon. And I'm like, are you going to be around that area? And you're like, nope. Said it to me. I'm like, oh.
It's not the same when you say Texas and I'm
like
gonna be by you. That's not the same thing. So Frisco to San Antonio, that's 4 hours. So
gross.
That's like going from Binghamton to Boston.
Yeah.
That's two different total places. And yeah, that's an unfortunate thing about Texas. Before we jump into the episode, where we'll be sharing how to navigate road trip, giving some tips, tricks, strategies on how to best plan for a road trip, can you both share what hats you are wearing? I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
No, let's do it. Yes.
All right. If you want. So for the listeners, let's describe what kind of hats. And for the viewers, you can just look on the video. You can see what we have. So go ahead. Ed, what do you have on tonight?
Oh, I'm wearing my 47 cleanup dad hat from the Durham Bulls. It's an all blue with the iconic Durham Bulls logo. So this is one of my favorite. And also, of course, as you guys already know, it has a tag on the back. So Chef's Kiss on that one.
Yeah, that's a good looking one. I need to get over there still. How about you, Eric? What hat do you have on tonight?
So this hat, John, you might be a little familiar with. It's the cop looking hat. It's black and it has a white front panel with a big red K on it with the eyes on it. Caught looking with a K because my friend John, that was his apparel brand that he used to do. So he was kind enough when he met me in Wichita a couple years ago, gave me this hat. So I got the caught looking hat today.
That is a very good looking hat, sir. And I have on, and I don't even know if this is an alternate of the missions. It's just the hat that they made. It is black crown, royal blue brim. And then it has like the pink Alamo and yellow SA on the front. And it's a good looking hat. So I guess
that's clean. That's a clean hat, dude.
Yeah, I had to buy it immediately. So what I wanted to ask you guys is, I'd like to know what you enjoy most about doing minor league level baseball road trips.
So for me, it's seeing a lot of the country that, you typically wouldn't see. Obviously a lot of big cities have major league baseball teams, but these minor league teams are in smaller cities and smaller markets that you may not be used to getting around and seeing. So for me, it's just getting to see the fun atmosphere that they have at the minor league games in towns that, typically pretty small, and getting to see other parts of the country you may not otherwise.
Yeah, I agree 100% with you. That's kind of what I think is the best thing about going to these road trips is you're going to cities you would never buy a plane ticket to for any reason except for maybe work, and end up in wherever, Greenville, South Carolina. Like, why would you go there? Spartanburg or any of those.
That one hit. Thanks, Eric. I know you're laughing at me already. Look at you, Spartanburg. I'm like, oh, that hurt.
But how about you, Ed? What do you enjoy most about doing these road trips?
Honestly, I look for the road trip itself, right? Like, I mean, you're seeing. I'm trying not to be like, so like, but like America, right? Like, you get to see like everything. pretty much. And when you get there, like, you see where like each ballpark is at. And I don't know if you guys do this, but like I look at the surrounding area where the ballpark is located,
Mhm.
and you're looking at, it's like, all right, so what's around, like, what's the view like, from the ballpark and all that. Is it a 360 concourse? Like, do you do all of that? So, and I know I do, right? So that's the best thing, is like, and obviously meeting the people, the cuisine and all that stuff. So I'm big on that.
Yeah, for sure. Every time I go to a park, that's what I do. When I met up with Eric that time, he texted me, "Hey, are you here yet?" I said, "Yeah, but I got to do my rounds first. I'll catch up with you in a minute. I just want to see what everything looks like before I sit down with you." But yeah, no, I agree.
Do you do
Uh,
the full, like, all around the full ballpark on the outside?
Oh yeah, I
Okay.
want to see the nooks and crannies of every part because like in Wichita, I mean, you'd miss the mural out front if you didn't go to that side. Then, that on the backside, I guess I learned that the troll was back there. Eric didn't tell me that until I'm in the stadium, but yeah. So, I didn't make it to that part. But yeah, I like to go in every little part
Love
for
it.
sure.
That's awesome.
So, but that's something that I do before I go on a trip. I try to put a lot of research into the cities and the stadiums that I visit. But of course, you can't hit everything. You can't find out that there's a troll behind the stadium. But that's one piece of why I started this whole show in the first place, is to help half of the research for our friends, eliminate. So all they've got to do is listen to this, and whatever the ballpark staff and the fan shares, and then they know some of the highlights of the city that they might not find on Google. But when you come up with your first segment of the trip, initially, how do you initially come up with that? I assume baseballmapper.com is probably something that you use early on in the research, but
You
how do
have
you usually
to.
pick your first region or team?
It all depends. Like, I know this summer I have to go to Wichita. Like, that's a trip that I gotta make, right? Eric will never let me live it down if I don't make it, so I have to make it there. But like, um, I look at, like, where my friends are at, pretty much. Like, the first part is like, all right, do I have any friends nearby that can come and
Mm,
join me at the ballpark? You know what I mean? So that way I can get those out of the way easier, right? Those
hmm
are the easy ones to get out of the way. Or it's like, all right, so do I have a friend? Like, for example, Paul Caputo and I, we drove from Denver. I flew from North Carolina to Denver, and then we drove from Denver down to Albuquerque for Isotopes game.
Yeah.
Right. So I was like, that whole trip was awesome because it's like I was spending time with my good friend. We got to go see some baseball, go around that area in Albuquerque, which, by the way, Albuquerque and Santa Fe are just beautiful towns. Like, the food is amazing,
hmm
and then just the area is awesome. So like, that's what I look at for sure.
Okay. Yeah. Personally, for me, I'm not the opposite, but I've done it by proximity first.
Hmm.
That's how I've hit everything in Texas. And the closest one I have now that is affiliated is Biloxi. That's how I started proximity wise, and then usually we do it with the family uh, trips. But how about you, Eric?
Yeah, so I actually take two big trips each year, one with my brother and then one with my wife and boys. And I've been to quite a few stadiums. Obviously, there's still a lot out there, but for me, when I travel with my brother, I usually let him kind of decide what area he'd want to go to. So,
Oh,
for instance, we already have what we call Profit Palooza. We have Profit Palooza 2025, rough area of where we want to go, kind of outline for next year.
oh well.
So it's just a matter of seeing and have an idea of what teams and stadiums we want to go to. Obviously, then we'll have to wait till the schedules come out, usually
Mhm.
September-ish or so, and then kind of put together and see what works for a singular week. Because we usually travel from like Saturday to Sunday or Friday to the following Sunday and do like 8 to 9 days. So that is kind of just maybe seeing a part of the country I haven't been to. Now,
Yeah.
obviously, what we're planning on for next year, for instance, I've been to a few of the places in that area, but that was a trip that I took with my wife and boys. And since my brother hasn't been there, I
Yeah.
want to go back. So, and I'm fine with seeing. I love, all the minor league teams and stadiums. So I don't mind going back to see a Charlotte Knights stadium
hmm
again or something like that. And then for my wife and the boys, when we go, we had been flying to different parts. So like last year, we flew over to the Northeast, whereas my brother and I went the opposite direction to the Pacific Northwest. But this year we're doing a trip that's where it's drivable. So we've done a lot of the teams that are kind of in a driving distance from us. There's a few more we were going to knock out. It just kind of depends on, which trip I'm going on, and just trying to pick a different region where we haven't really been yet.
Yeah, and you brought up a point that I usually spend one day usually on a road trip in any place, and I say, oh, I want to come back to this place. So Tulsa is one of those places that I said I want to go back to, which was only last summer, so I still have time. But there's still several other places I've said, oh, I got to come back, and I have not yet. But you get to do that. You have done that, you said, so that's pretty good. That's pretty cool. But you also brought up something that I'm curious about, and you said 8 to 9 days with your brother. What's the ideal length of a good baseball road trip, and how do you know if it's too long or too short?
Honestly, I don't know that it would ever be too long. I could go if I had the money for it, and that's obviously the hardest part is having the money for it. But I could easily go for multiple weeks. One of our friends, Mapping the Path, he does one that's like 23, 24 day long, 24 team trip.
That's
I
amazing.
would do that if I had the time and the money for it. But for me, it's usually roughly 7 to 10 days is usually what our trip is. We usually go either, like I said, on a Saturday to the following Saturday or Sunday, or this one we did last month for our 2024 trip. We flew out on a Friday and then came back the following Sunday. So to me, and I'm doing smaller ones as well, just by myself, where like this weekend at the time of this recording, we're going to North Carolina. So I'll just be there for, 3 days. But then also I'm doing a trip here by myself this late in the season where it's just like for 3 or 4 days. But if it's somebody with like family and stuff, a week to 10 days is, a lot of fun. But I could go longer.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to spend that much time with my brother. To be honest with you, you know what I mean? It's kind of like, I don't know. By day 3, I'm like, bro, can you go? Can you go somewhere? Let me alone. But you know what though? Like the way I'm doing it, and it's the same thing. It's like, budget wise, I got to think about the budget, for me. So like long weekends is what I do. Although I've been taking a page out of your book, John, is I'm trying to hit all of the North Carolina teams.
Yeah.
Right. Before we lose a couple of them, right? Like the Carolina Mudcats that we're going to be going to, right? They're moving still within North Carolina, but it's like, all right, let me go there before they leave.
Right.
The Down East Wood Ducks, same thing. They're leaving, so I want to make sure that I get there before they become the Spartan Burgers again. You know what I mean? It's not a sore subject, I promise. It's not. No, not at all. But you're right, though. It's like, for me, it's like the weekend, a Friday, Saturday, Sunday kind of deal. Like long weekends is what my max right now is for that.
Long weekends. Okay.
Gotta go the stupid jobs,
Yeah. Well, for me, what I started doing, I think I just started this year, is I calculated the last couple of years how much it cost me to spend money at the hotels, at the team shop, eating the food. And then I divided that up between my paychecks, so it won't hurt this coming year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it won't hurt at all because the money was already allocated for. So for anybody going on a road trip, that's one of my tips. Just save up for it.
And that's why for me, our trip that we're doing with my wife and boys, we've actually switched it up and we're just driving to do this one. Because here the last couple of years trying to fly with my wife and 3 boys, so 5 of us, having flights, because now the little one's old enough where he costs, because before before he turned 2, he can fly for free, but now that he's 3, he costs, and then to get in a hotel and
rent a car.
Yeah, exactly. So it can add up. So this year we decided to take our own vehicle and just head south, and we're actually going into Texas, and my wife's best friend's going with us, and her dad actually lives in Houston. And so he's actually going to let us stay with him for a few days. So it'll kind of help there, and we may have to do that next year because, it just really added up. Now it's a little bit easier for my brother and I just because it's only the 2 of us, but even then it can be decently expensive.
Yeah.
So yeah, depending on how many people you go with, depends on whether or not it's something. And it could be a pretty long drive. So where we're at, going all the way down to like San Antonio, is going to be a long drive. But
Mhm.
we break it up, and that's why we see other teams. And my two big trips, like I said, is usually about a week long, a little longer in a week. But anything other than that, it's usually 2 to 3 days, maybe 4 days.
Yeah, same for me. But I think that's almost too short, because that's going to lead into my next question is I've been very lucky with good weather for most of my trips, except for my very first trip back in 2020, where I was starting to do these more often. We went to Sugarland and it was pouring rain, pouring. Didn't get canceled though. It just ended up being super muggy after. So, Eric, I know you unfortunately run into bad weather a couple of times over your last couple of years. So most recently, even on your Proffitt Palooza trip in my hometown of Binghamton. So how do you plan for those bad weather trips?
Well, luckily it worked out for us this year. So we did get up to Binghamton. So we actually drove from Cleveland over to Binghamton, roughly about 5 hours, and we were, I don't know, less than an hour out when uh, my brother had looked at the Twitter post from the Rumble Ponies that said that the game was rained out. Well, then, so we kind of just looked at it, and we were planning on going to Scranton to see the Scranton Wilkes-Barre Rail Riders the next day. Well, their game was playing. They were roughly hour and a half south. And so we got it to work out, luckily, on this trip where we just flipped days. So we ended up, as soon as we got to Binghamton, we unloaded because we had already had a hotel for that evening in Binghamton. So we unloaded our luggage, and then at the hotel, drove down to the game, and then had to drive back up. So it was quite a bit of driving. And then the next day, then we, because our hotel was in Scranton, we ended up, staying, going to the game in Binghamton.
Yeah.
And then from there, we had to drive down. So luckily it worked out this time. But yeah, in the past, especially like 2 years ago on my trip with my wife and boys, we had, I want to say, 4 games that had rain. 2 were in a rain delay and 2 that got rained out. So we got rained out in Gwinnett to see the Gwinnett Stripers. Haven't been back yet to see them play, so that's one that I want to get back to. And then got rained out in Daytona Beach to see the Daytona Tortugas, and that one I was pretty upset about just personally, because at the time our friend the young professor was the on-field host, and he was going to have me throw out the first pitch at Jackie Robinson Ballpark, and that was the day after Jacob deGrom was on rehab, so I would have thrown from the same mound that deGrom threw the day before. But so unfortunately I did end up going then the next year with my brother. He wanted to go to Daytona, so him and I went. We got to see the game. So it just kind of depends. Been to a lot that have been in a rain delay, or had a delay to start the game. Or last year on my trip to the Northeast, we had, I think, five rain delays in the first 4 games that we went to. Luckily, all of them played. The game, for instance, in Baltimore had like a 2 to 3 hour rain delay, but they finally started the game and played it, so we got to see that. And then, like, when we were in Reading to see the Fightin' Phils, there was actually 2 rain delays during the middle of the game, but they only lasted 15 to 20 minutes, and then they started back up again after they pulled the tarp back off. But yeah, so it just kind of depends on, if we miss out completely. Usually, kind of like we had talked about, where we're in a city for maybe 1 day max, usually it doesn't work out where we can go to the game. And so, like, for instance, from Gwinnett, I'll have to try to get back there at some point, just because it didn't work out that time. Or this, luckily this year we're able to just switch those 2 days and end up getting to see Binghamton and the Rail Riders.
Yeah. So what would be your tip for people who need to be caught? I don't even consider that, just because San Antonio doesn't rain. So I don't, when I think of going to games, I don't even think about that. And I try to remember it now, because, I'm going to places that it's going to possibly rain nowadays. But do you have a tip for people who might run into a rain delay? What do you think they should do instead?
Well, it kind of depends on if you're already at the ballpark, because there's been some games that we've got to the ballpark, and for me, I'm a big collector of little ice cream helmets, so that's usually the first thing I do. And I joked about it a couple years ago on one of my trips that I got the ice cream helmet before it went to rain delay. I said, a lot of people I got to be here through at least 7 innings, or I got to be here for 9 innings for it to count as, being at the stadium. And I joked, oh yeah, I got my ice cream helmet. It's an official game for me. But Usually they have, obviously the team store is going to be open and the food stands and stuff. So if you're already at the ballpark, see what you can enjoy at the ballpark, and hopefully the rain will subside, because obviously the teams are going to try their best to get the game in. And so hopefully they'll be able to, have some little, delay and then get the game in. But if not, if you haven't even got there yet, maybe there's something around town that, my brother and I like going to breweries, so maybe you can go over to a brewery or a restaurant, or maybe there's a kids science museum or something that you can check out and see if the games ends up getting played or not. So for me, I always just have them on social media, like on Twitter, and I just follow the account for updates to see, and because they're pretty good usually about saying whether or not they're going to play or how long they think that the delay will be, if there's just a delay.
Okay. And how about you, Ed? Have you experienced that?
I actually have. I remember going to driving to High Point last year, and this is when I did the live show from there.
I remember that.
So, like, dude, on the way there, I got hit by this massive thunderstorm. It was just like from there on. I'm like, I actually had to park at one point and wait. I'm like, man. I should have known better, but I did it. It's like I sent them message like, "Are you guys still playing?" Because this is like.
Oh, you were that guy?
I was that guy. I'm like, dude,
yeah.
But here's the thing though, like if it's a local team,
right,
I'm not gonna say anything. I'll just wait it out. But like I'm driving like over an hour to High Point. I'm like, I don't want to make the whole trip there and then just turn right back around, Luckily, I got lucky though, right? Like I got lucky that I was like, all right, like I don't recommend it. Like if you have a local team, don't text them or don't call them and, hey, are you guys still playing? But like if you're driving hour plus, it's free game for me.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
That when I'm driving an hour, right?
Right, like, bro, I'm over an hour away. Like, I want to go see you guys, but I'm like, I don't want to go all the way there just so you guys can like cancel it right there on the spot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm like, you guys can keep the money on the ticket. I don't care. But like, it's cash. So, but luckily, I got lucky, right? And I was able to enjoy it. The good thing is also, this is a discussion for later, right? But it's like. The field is not grass, right? So it's all turf. So I was like, it was already dry and ready to go. So there was no prep that needed to be done or anything like that. So it's like, all right, play on. So
perfect. Okay, all right. So when you do go to a ballpark, what should people consider bringing before they head to the ballpark? What do you research? Because I do research before I head to the ballpark. I need to know certain things that you can and cannot bring in. And stuff like that. But what do you think people who aren't used to going on road trips to different ballparks? So, for example, I went to the Pacific Northwest, and I'd never been denied, but they denied me my camera. They said I was a professional camera. I'm like, it's just a Fuji, guys. I'm an amateur, right? But that was the first place that ever did that, and I couldn't believe it. So I don't know. And I thought about it. I was like, is it because it's low A or
no,
that they won't let me have it? But I go, no, because Clearwater let me bring mine in, so that wasn't it. So, but they're like, I don't know, it's just the rules. So what kind of things do people need to consider?
This is an interesting one for me because I, like you, I'm also a content creator, right? So I take my phone, but I also get some extra gear with it. Right. So I have a pack that I carry over my shoulder.
Yep.
And the last couple of times I have not been able to take it inside with me. So like I don't have any other lenses. Yeah, Albuquerque would not let me. They like right up there, but they're like, nah, bro, you can't.
Was it the equipment or the bag?
Both.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I had to shove some stuff in my pocket, you know what I mean, and then take the rest of the car.
Oh man.
So I could only take my headphones, and then on my wallet I carry a little card. It looks like a card, but it's a tripod, so I can convert it into a little tripod.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, the signal there couldn't. Like I was trying to go live from there from Instagram, dude. I could not do it. So I was like, I'm like, come on, just load, please load. But it couldn't do it. So I always bring my glove. That's number one. Like you always, for me, bring your glove, right?
Okay.
Listen, if people give you
doesn't matter
about it, then that's all on you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to take your,
Yeah.
Gotcha. I don't want to be the first one to swear on the podcast. But glove. And if it's a night game, Depending, you gotta look at the weather, man. That's like check the weather app, right? Because like you don't know,
Yep.
it's like 90 now, but like in Albuquerque, it was hot during the day, dude, but it got cold real quick. So you
Mm,
needed a hoodie.
yes.
You know what I mean? Shorts
Good
is
one.
fine. Like I mean, I'm wearing shorts and a hoodie. I'm from Cleveland, right? So it's like shorts and hoodie. That's like the official uniform of Ohio. But like, yeah, those are the things that I would definitely be like, all right, bring that
Okay.
for sure.
Yeah, those are good ones. Yeah, especially the hoodie one. I ran into that, and
And then you have to buy one there, right?
uh,
I did. I gave in. I was like, it is too cold. So
well, I
bought
know
a
you
hoodie.
shared the story of the Cleveland Indians one where you
the
have
World
that
Series.
one.
Yeah.
What do you think, Eric? What should people consider bringing or making sure they check before they go to the ballpark?
Yeah, I'd agree with Ed as far as checking the weather because, like, for instance, we went to the Pacific Northwest last August. So, August in Texas and Kansas, kind of, where we're at, you and I are at, John, was 90 to 100 degrees.
Yep.
But we went to the Everett Aqua Sox, and that game that evening didn't rain, but it got pretty chilly that evening. And so I had a little jacket I took. So obviously, yeah, if you're not from the area, check the weather, obviously, before you go, especially if you're like flying out somewhere or even if you're driving. Make sure you just kind of pack both ways because it can be a little bit chilly depending on where you're going specifically. But one thing that I do at most of the ballparks, most of them, not all of them, will allow you to bring in a bottle of water as long as it's sealed.
Yeah.
And so especially like if you're in Texas or somewhere where that's going to be pretty hot during the summer. Now, obviously, most states is going to be pretty warm most of the summer. Wanted to check that, though. I did go on my trip last year to a AAA ballpark that I won't mention, that they would not let us bring in our own water. Majority of the ballparks, major league ballparks, allow you to bring them in. And this was, we had just been to the AAA, or the major league of that AAA team, and they let us bring in water, but their own AAA wouldn't let us bring it in. So
Call him out. Do it right here on this podcast. Do it.
Let's think about all the places he's been recently.
know, right?
Let's double up.
check
Wait,
last
hold on,
year's
you
trip. That was AAA.
Okay.
But then also, we usually bring in, for the most part, they'll allow you, but depending on the size, usually like a bag that you can bring in. Most of them like if it has to be, or they like for it to be a clear bag.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
then that way, if you end up getting a bunch of hats or other souvenirs or whatever case you may have, or if you have a ball glove, you can put it in. So we have kind of like, my brother has like a backpack size clear bag that he takes, and he always tells them to save the bag at the team store. He'll just put it in his little backpack thing. And
Smart.
most of them are like, thank you guys so much for having a clear bag. You make our lives much easier. And so if they accept it, most do. Just check the policy. Most stadiums nowadays do allow bags, but they have to be a certain size, and most of them should be clear. So just kind of check that as well before you go.
I started
Yeah,
bringing
definitely the bag thing. I have a mini-sized backpack one that I'll stuff my camera in. But I also have the tote one when I'm really gearing up. So if I know I'm going to be buying a lot of stuff, that clear bag comes in handy. That clear backpack, again, that's where I agree. Check the size because sometimes the size won't pass. But also the one that I'm surprised you didn't mention was check the side where the sun sets, because you want to get a ticket on the especially if you're in Texas or Wichita. Sit on the opposite side of where the sun is setting, or behind it where it is setting. Yeah,
I was just gonna say, I've started bringing a fanny pack.
Yeah,
I know it sounds funny as hell, right? But like, dude, it worked because I can put some of my gear in there, and then I don't have to worry about it. I was like, hey, no, that's part of my outfit.
Yeah, no, that's a good one.
So
for sure.
Now the sun one, that's super smart.
Yeah. Okay. So when we're traveling to go to the ballpark, what are your car essentials while you're on the road? What do you take?
Let's talk snacks.
Yes. I mean, a Buc-ee's trip stop for sure. I know. I don't think Ed is a Buc-ee's guy though.
I haven't been to a Buc-ee's.
Oh,
you gotta go. Yeah, we don't have any here in Kansas either, but anytime we go to Texas, we stop at Buc-ee's. But yeah, I just did a road trip this weekend. We went down to Oklahoma City to see the Savannah Bananas at Bricktown Ballpark.
Yeah.
Came back after the game and then drove up to Kansas City to see the Royals for the Saturday-Sunday game. So we definitely had snacks. So for me, it's snacks, got water usually bring with us, and then we're all podcasters, so we fire up the podcast and listen to each other's podcasts since there's a lot of downtime for the drive time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I listened to entire Ricky Henderson's autobiography or biography last year. I had enough time to do 11 hours. So yeah, for sure. Audiobooks as well. Yeah.
Bro, I'm huge on audiobooks, right? So like I do audiobooks. I switch it up between that and podcasts, or
Mhm.
if I have my daughter with us, then it'll be some kind of Disney something, you know,
Yeah.
on the car. So although she's been on Chronicles of Narnia now, so that's what we're listening
Oh,
to now.
wow.
So I know Harry Potter, we're done with that. Now we're Chronicles of Narnia. But water, plenty of water. And then I also usually get one energy drink, and that'll last me like all day.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just sip through it. But then I'm huge on snacks, right? So beef jerky is one of my things. Love me some beef jerky.
Yep.
Sunflower seeds, and then I gotta get a cup because I spit the all of that. So I was like, all right, here we go. So I spit the seeds.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm a ball player once I'm doing that, And then what else? My wife, right when my wife comes, was like, she should take her laptop with her so that she can do some work while I'm driving, something like that. But yeah, it's definitely, you got to get as many snacks as possible. Fruits, so that way you can eat somewhat healthy, even though we know it's gonna be like a nothing but garbage kind of food, right? And make sure, for the love of God, make sure that if you're gonna make a stop before you leave the house, make sure you go to the bathroom at the stop. Make sure you go to the bathroom as well. It's like, it's like, oh, I don't have to go. No, go right now.
Yes. So I was going to say the same thing. I learned that on my first solo trip to Midland. I find out where the rest areas are if you can, because I passed one and I was fine. And as soon as I passed it, I was no longer fine.
Yeah, of
and
course.
the next one did not come probably for 2 hours. And I was hurting so bad. So figure out where the rest areas are, or don't pass a rest area. Just go.
Mhm.
Even if it takes 10 minutes. Every stop, I think, tacks on like 15 to 20 minutes to your trip for whatever reason. It just does. But go to every bathroom if you can.
Dude, and I know all of you do this because I know I do too. I was like, you take a look at the time; it's gonna take you there. So you're racing against time to make sure you beat it a minute or two. It doesn't matter as long as you beat it before that tells you, oh, it's gonna take you 2 hours and 33 minutes. I'm like, no, I want to make it in 2:27.
It will not.
Yeah, right, exactly. It's like, I don't know what you're talking about, but I want to make it less than that.
Challenge accepted.
Exactly.
So I also have, I always take a cooler. I bring a mini cooler, but I bought on Amazon these flat ice packs. They're super flat and they fit. They take up less space. So if you can go on Amazon, they come in 3 in a pack. They're about 12 by 12 inches and they fit in a cooler really nice. We take them for everything. And I bought a collapsible cooler as well, because the space, you just be surprised how much you need space.
So it's funny you say that because we actually keep the ice packs from the HelloFresh.
Oh, yeah.
And they're flat, so I put it in my chest freezer in the garage, and then when we're leaving, I was like, all right, let's use a couple of those, and then put those suckers in there.
Yeah, for sure. Okay.
Yeah, and that's what I'd agree with that too, John. So if we're doing, well, even if we're flying out, once we rent a car, if we don't have one already, like a collapsible cooler like we got last year, we'll go and pick one up, and then we'll find like a Walmart or a Sam's or something, go in and get like a bunch of bread. We do a lot of sandwiches, so we'll get that, put it in the cooler, and then that way, because we talked about costs and everything, and that will help. So if you decide, instead of eating out like every single lunchtime before you get to the ballpark, you would be able to have sandwiches and chips or whatever, do that, and it's a lot cheaper to do that. So we started doing that over the last couple of years.
Bro, it's a good trick. The Hawaiian rolls.
Yeah.
You prep it the night before, right? You go open it, you put ham, cheese, butter, whatever you want to do. I don't care. And then you cut them and then
So
put it
that's
right
what
back in the bag.
That's funny you say that, because my wife actually started doing that. So my middle son plays high school baseball, and they've been playing doubleheader. So we're there from like 4:15 to almost 8 o'clock. And so she'll do that. She'll get out of work, and then she'll just bring over that, and that's what she's been doing. So we usually have those out at the ballpark. So yeah, that's funny you mentioned that because that's what we started doing
Dude, it's
recently.
super smart, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
It
just
is.
grab that, pull one out. All right, here you go. Pass it along.
Nice.
And
So-
then get the little mini bags of chips and be done.
Hey, there you go. The mini bags of chips as well. You guys reminded me of another tip for navigation because your phone's going to be running and it gets hot. If you're driving through Texas and Oklahoma and Kansas and all those other hot states, don't put your phone up on the dash on the little thing, because your phone, if you drive through Texas, I'll tell you what, navigation is going to take you to roads where the signal's going to go away. And next thing you know, your phone shuts off and you don't know where you're going. And then you're just waiting for it to cool back down. You got it on the air conditioner. And then finally it starts up just in the nick of time because there's your right. And so just be aware, keep your phone cool, or have it, if you don't have one of those in-dash with the Android Auto or Apple Car, whatever they call it.
That's what I have.
Yeah.
I have the Apple Car, but I put my phone, I have a little magnet on it, and then it's right in front of the
Yes.
vent. So it's like I put the AC on, so I just let the AC on, hit the phone, so that way it's always cool.
Yes, it's a very good tip, I promise you. You don't want to get on a back road and wonder if that was your turn or not.
Right.
Yeah, you mentioned something else, or you basically said it, but your car charger, whether that's for your phone or if you have, your wife or kids or whoever else has phones, make sure you have car chargers. That way
Yes.
they don't die and they have something to do. And if you do have kids, we usually bring little books or little tablets that you can have the kids sit there and play with, or other little toys. So that's another recommendation if you're in the car is phone chargers and then toys or books for the kids.
Do you do the those clipboards that open up and everything?
Mm-hmm.
And then my wife usually puts like color pencils and color books and
Oh,
all that
right.
in there, so that way my daughter can use that. But obviously her iPad as well. We download like some movies or shows for her. But I also found that like I charge mini batteries for my phones and stuff, and I keep them charged just in case. Like you never know what can happen, right? Like you get stranded or something
Yeah.
like that. I always keep a blanket in my trunk, a couple of blankets actually, toilet paper. I always keep it in the car no matter what. You know what I mean? So like seriously, I'll show you. Like if when you guys are coming here, during the event for the Current Media, you'll see it. Like I have that stuff in the back of my car just because you never know what could happen.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, because my wife and youngest and I, we went to see my podcast partner Johnny at his house in Mississippi over spring break, and it was like 40 degrees heading over. We're going to stay the night in Springfield, Missouri, and it was about 40 degrees. It was cold, it was wet, super strong winds, and my car broke down, and we were sitting off the side of the highway, and so I didn't feel safe sitting in the car, so we got out and we're staying out in the miserable weather. But yeah, if you can bring, even if you don't think it's going to rain or anything, make sure you have blankets and stuff like Ed mentioned as well, because we had to do that to keep the baby cold, or to warm him up. Sorry. So yeah, blankets, and even if it's not for something where you're stranded on the side of the road, blankets or pillows, because a lot of times people want to, whoever aren't driving, people want to sleep, because if I'm not driving, I'm probably asleep in the car.
Oh, not the very best with a navigator.
No, I can't. If I'm not driving, dude, I'm falling asleep. I
Yep.
tried to stay up, but all of a sudden you see me head bobbing everywhere.
Oh, all right. Well, Ed, I know you've done a few group gatherings. You already alluded to the one that you're going to be doing this weekend at the time of this recording. So you've done a couple in the past couple of years. So what should people be aware of if they're going to travel to meet a group at the ballpark?
It's funny because like this is something that we've been talking about, and Eric, and I got to give Eric credit for this. It's like they've been constantly saying, "All right, where are we sitting? Where's the area that we're going to be sitting?" Right? We don't all necessarily have to sit together, but look for an area we can all be somewhat closer, right? So that way we can go hang out. If someone's not sitting there, we can go hang out there and everything. But that's one, right? Just make sure that it's like create a group text, so that way we're all on the same page. I'm like, all right, the game starts at this time, gates open in this time, we're going to be here if you guys want to meet up, or we're going to go to this bar before we go in there, just so that way it makes it easier for everybody, right?
Yep.
Uh, and what else? Like, I mean, that's pretty much like the biggest thing for us is just looking for the area. I, we all doing it for fun, to be honest with you. So like, we
Yeah.
all know that we're all gonna be there, and then I'm working on trying to get like see if we can get like a discount or something at the team store for everybody because we're all coming from all over the U.S. So that's
Right.
like, hey, we're going to be supporting these teams, collegiate woodbat, triple A, single A. So it'll be fun for all of us to have some fun together.
Yeah. And I know you've done a couple of meetups, Eric.
Mm-hmm.
What do you recommend when people are doing larger groups, not like one-on-one? Obviously, I'll just tell you just to wait until I get to my seat. But what would you recommend for like a group of people?
He's not lying. He really did that. I'm like, John, where are you at? He's like, I'm here. Just give me a moment. I'll be over there. He just didn't want to see the Proffitt family. That's my brother and my wife and boys. So, no, I mean, if it's a stadium, and this is not something that I'm worried about, but if it's a stadium you haven't been to before, I don't know that we're going to be watching the game, but I think it's going to be a lot of chatter between the group.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's
Yeah.
something where you planned on taking in the game and the experience, it may not be quite there. So if it's something, that you may look forward to going again, if you haven't been there before. Now, like for instance, we're going to Durham on Saturday. I've been there before, so at least
Yeah.
I have that. But and for me, like I haven't been to the Carolina Mudcats or whatever. I just have to try to see as much as I can, maybe pre-game, because during the game, I think it's just going to us, friends getting together and catching
Yeah.
up and everything.
Do the tour, right? Like, it's like, all right, let's go
Right.
around, let's do the full look at where, the amenities and look at what the team store has or the food, right? Because that's something that I scope right before I go in, right? All right,
Yep.
where am I going in? All right, where's the team store? All right, cool, I found the team store. All right, what am I gonna eat now? Like, what's the if there is there's a local beer or what are they known for as far as food is concerned, and then go from there and then find your
Yes.
seats.
Okay. Yeah. I do recommend probably going before, if you can, before everybody gets there so you can do your own thing. I know that's probably what I would do because then, yeah, you would end up talking for the rest of the day and you might get a good brother Joe who will buy you a beer and then you're just there for the rest of the night. All right.
You heard that, Ed. If you come to Wichita, Brother Joe will buy you a beer.
Sounds good to me.
All right. So one last one. I know what I prefer when I go to different cities when I stay, but do you recommend staying close to the ballpark or it doesn't really matter?
So for me, it would be nicer if we were close to the ballpark, but it's actually usually for us just because we're traveling where we're usually not anywhere near the ballpark. So for instance, like when we went over in April on our ballpark trip, my brother and I, we were about 3 hours from Erie, Pennsylvania to see the Seawolves. So we actually just drove up. It was an afternoon Sunday game. So we just drove the morning of over to the ballpark and then just went back just because the way our schedule worked out, we ended up going to see the Detroit Tigers. And so it would have been like a super long drive if we would have stayed in the area. So for us, usually, and especially on this past trip we just did, we're roughly about an hour and a half at least from most ballparks. But it's if it works out, it's recommended to stay as close as possible. That way, you're exhausted after the long game, and then you have an easy drive back to the hotel. But for me, it doesn't really matter. We usually are at least an hour away, and then that way, it typically will put us closer to the next ballpark the next day. We're just that much closer. Right. So
okay, yeah.
This is a tricky question for you, just because like I want to go closer, but sometimes like the area where the ballpark is at, it's kind of suspect. Like I'm not trying to,
just where they put them.
That's what I'm saying. This is just that's the fact of the matter, right? So I was like, all right, so let me find somewhere, and this is the part of the research part that you do. I was like, all right, let me see where the area is. Check out. I know it's gonna sound bad, but like check out how many stars the hotel has. What kind of do they offer free breakfast and things like that, and then I'll make my determination. It doesn't necessarily have to be like right there next to the ballpark. Would it be nice? Yeah, absolutely. Yes. 100%. Right. But it doesn't necessarily have to be there. So as long as it's close enough, like Eric was saying, it's just like, then we can deal with that.
Yeah, my
Yeah,
number
man.
one is the free breakfast, and it has to be a very nice breakfast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
mine. But yeah. So, all right. Well, everyone, I want to thank Eric and Ed for coming on to share their thoughts on how to possibly have a good baseball road trip. I know this is an exhaustive list, but since this is a road tripping show, then I figured we needed to have some road tripping tips.
Absolutely.
But now, for my famous, not so famous questions. No, just kidding. I don't
love
have
it.
any.
Let's do it.
I really don't.
Hey, you
I don't
wanna
have
do some
any
tri-
questions.
I got some trivia questions ready to go, baby.
Oh gosh. No, but Ed, would you mind sharing a little bit about what the Dad Hat Chronicles is for people who might not be familiar?
So the Dad Hat Chronicles started back when during the pandemic, right? Just wanted to interact with more people on Twitter that are like-minded like me, that love sports, love baseball, and all that. So the podcast, that's the first thing that I created, and I get to talk to people like you guys. Like I've interviewed both of you on the podcast. You guys have been on the podcast, and then also. Actually, John, I think you're the first one, dude.
I was the very first one.
You're the first one that I interviewed for the podcast. Eric, I forget your number.
Yeah, he did. Honestly, I reached out and said, "Yeah, I want to be on," because he mentioned it, and then he just ignored me. And then
Totally.
Yeah,
finally,
nobody forgets their first though. So
I
Finally, I
wanted
made my
to
way on.
be. I wanted to have his brother actually, and not him. But
That's also a true story. And then he's like,
Goodness
"No, I don't want to be
gracious, he
on."
really
I'm
does
serious,
not like you.
Joe,
That's a true
Joe was
story.
like, no, we're good.
It's gonna be awkward when I come over to his house this weekend.
I know,
Oh,
right? It's
gosh.
super awkward. But then we have the show, right? The DHC Sports Show, where all bantering, talking sports, not just
Yep.
baseball, right? It's just football, basketball, a little bit of not really basketball, because we're not really basketball guys, but NHL, things like that. Whatever comes to our mind, right?
Yep.
That we all have fun there. So it's every Tuesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern time. We don't talk about the Mountain Zone because the Mountain Zone doesn't exist for us. It's a
No,
fake
it does
zone. So,
It
but
does
yeah,
not.
man, that's it, man. And just
Okay. Where can
that's
people
it.
find you online?
The Dad Hat Chronicles. If you look up at the Dad Hat Chronicles or the Dad Hat 216, you'll find
All
me
right.
there.
Awesome. And before we head out, how about a little bit about Earned Fund Average, Eric, for the listeners who aren't familiar?
So I started a little over 2 years ago. Was friends with a random guy on Twitter. Didn't know him anywhere other than Twitter, and knew he was a baseball guy. And kind of started as a joke. I was like, "Hey, we should do a podcast." And so Johnny Bullen and I do the Earned Fund Average podcast, and we have lots of fun guests on. Whether it's our friends like you guys were both on. Or if it was, somebody in affiliated minor league baseball, summer collegiate baseball, independent professional, any of those type of front office workers or any along the lines of that. So yeah, we drop that every Wednesday, Earned Fund Average, and we can be found on both Instagram and Twitter, Earned Fund Average with average being AVG. And then myself posting about all the games I've been to. So Ed and Patrick like to say I've been to a baseball game or two this season, especially. I went 2 years ago to 100 baseball games. Not quite sure if I'll get there, but getting close maybe this year. But I'm at ePro04.
He'll make it. He'll make
Yeah,
it.
he's definitely going to make it.
He will.
I don't even know how many I've been to. 3, and he's been to 33, I think.
I've been to
at the time of
33 so
this
far,
recording.
dude.
33.
Yeah, it's crazy. Well, gentlemen, thank you for coming on this special episode. Usually I have fans like you on their city episode, so hopefully we can do that really soon. This episode is available on your favorite podcast platform, and you can also watch it on YouTube. If you haven't, then give Minor League Fan Club a follow on socials. We also have a Discord that can use a few more people to keep the conversation going. Otherwise, I hope to see you at the ballpark soon. See you later. We really knocked that one out the park.